Thanks, Christopher. Thanks, everybody, for calling in. We'll let Coach Smart begin with a few opening remarks, and then we'll take your questions. Coach Smart.
Yeah, I'll just open with, everybody got the release, and, we're not going to be able to play a game this weekend. I think that's tough, and welcome to 2020. It's unfortunate for our seniors who really wanted to play, and those guys were excited to get one more game at Sanford Stadium. They wanted to finish off at home with their families, and I know that better than anybody how important that last game is in Sanford Stadium. So it's a crushing blow to not get that for them, but they understand it, and they understand they moved on now. So today's about our signing day class. I want to stay focused on these guys because this is their one chance to get in the limelight. And after a very unique recruiting process and a lot of extensive work from people in our organization, from our recruiting staff to our academic staff to all our support staff, a lot of people did a lot of hard work. Rhonda Kilpatrick, Christina Harris, they do a tremendous job of helping get these guys enrolled. This will be the largest mid-year class I think that we've ever signed at Georgia, and we expect anywhere from 14, 15 to 16 in the next couple of days. It'd be somewhere around that number. As guys finish up their requirements to possibly enroll early. And when you're talking about 20 signees and possibly 16 enrolling early, I don't know that I've ever seen that. And maybe somebody else has done it in the country, but it's certainly the new trend. And I think it'll continue to be that way. I think COVID probably caused some of that as well, but it's a very well-rounded class. It's a closer to home class, which was probably directed by COVID and more kids wanting to stay closer to home. And that's important to us. We always say take care of the state first. And I've sat up here on these days before where that wasn't the case. And it wasn't that we didn't feature our home area, but it certainly made it more convenient to take care of guys because they wanted to be near their families and have their families be able to come watch them play. And that's been a big added factor during the pandemic. So I'm excited about the class. I'll talk about the class as much as you guys want to, but I do want to try to keep it to the signing stuff.
All right, let's go to questions. Let's start out with Mike Griffith and then Seth Emerson.
Yeah, Kirby, pretty overall broad-based question here. As far as meeting needs, can you address some position groups that you thought were key and where you think you're at on that here in the early signing date?
Yeah, what am I supposed to say, right? One of y'all sent something out this morning, right? You met all your needs today, so you're happy and you're good, and everybody's happy, right? That's what you're supposed to say. So I don't think you ever meet all your needs because you don't actually know what your needs are right now, as well as I'll know what my needs are come January, maybe 15th or 16th. You may have a greater need in an area that you don't know that you need a greater need in terms of whether it's a junior early out or it's a transfer. But that's the timeline. You know what I mean? We get the groceries before we know what we need. So right now, that's just kind of where we're at and what we have to deal with. But I'm very pleased with the class. Certainly, you always like to have a balanced class, right? Positionally, you're trying to basically sign a team, and you want to get a good player here, a good player here, a good player here. Sometimes your numbers are different, and sometimes your numbers are based on best available. And we do. I'm going to guess we do as much numbers crunching on that as anybody in the country. We don't just take people to take people. We have targets and we have needs. Every roster spot on our team is we try to fill a certain type player. And I feel like we were able to do that across the board.
Feel good about cornerback and defensive back then?
Yeah, I'm pleased with what we got. And I'm excited about the guys we get to coach at that position. And we've got some guys coming in that I feel great about. And, I think the guys we got early were really good players, really high character players when you look across the board. And the guys we finished late with, I think, are really good players. A lot of really good football teams wanted those guys to join their team. And, with not having camp, that's one of those positions that it's harder to evaluate. And we were very pleased that we got to see guys' workout footage and guys sent us tape over the summer. And it made the decision so much clearer and easier to really target the guys you wanted and go out and get those guys.
Kirby, when it comes to getting Brock Vandegrift, I know the quarterback is a position that I guess you and Georgia and handling of the quarterback position over the last year or two has come under criticism. What does it say to continue to get 5 stars like him? Did you hear any pushback about quarterbacks at Georgia or whatever? What does it still say to be able to get someone like him?
quarterbacks want to play at Georgia. I don't know if you've noticed, but they enjoy playing at Georgia. So criticism is going to be there in everything we do, but the opportunity to play at the University of Georgia and be a quarterback, I mean, I can just start naming all the quarterbacks who played here who have been really good, and those kids look up to and idolize one overall pick. And those kids, they want an opportunity to do that. You know, they want an opportunity to win championships. And if you putting yourself in the conversation of being able to win championships is always going to put you at the forefront of every quarterback in the country's list. When they start talking about where I want to go win a championship. At least that's what the best quarterbacks want to do. And Brock was never shied away from that. You know, he wanted an opportunity to play close to home. He wanted an opportunity to play near his family. His dad's a coach right here near town. His mom's a teacher, and he's got sisters that are really good athletes. So it's like he wants to be able to play in front of them. So I'm excited about what he can do. He's been a leader for his program. He's still in the playoffs. He's been productive. We're excited to see what he can bring to the University of Georgia.
Okay, let's go Anthony Dasher and then Mark Weiser.
Hey, Coach, I know you always go into every recruiting class one and really fill up your offensive line, get 5 or 6 kids. The guys you got this year, I mean, starting from Marius Mims, Micah Morris. I mean, did you accomplish everything you guys were looking to do with this group?
Yeah, that was an area that was, I would say, heavy loaded last year. If you look at just sheer numbers, and I don't know that you can ever have a year that is not heavy loaded. This might be, and I don't know this for facts. I don't quote me on it. It could be our smallest number of signees at that position, maybe besides the very first year. I don't know, but 4 is like the bare minimum to me because you're trying to sign an offensive line class. With every year, because with the numbers, the attrition, the transfer rules, if you have 5 and you have 5 every year and you have 4 signing classes, you're supposed to be 4 deep. Well, nobody's 4 deep at the offensive line position. We've seen that this year. The teams that can't play, it's because of injuries on the offensive line or COVID on the offensive line. So that's a depth position that we always target. It's a developmental position. I say it every year. Offensive lineman, it's really hard to come in and play. I'm really excited about this group. They're athletic. They got great size. They're really bright, good kids. I mean, Jared Wilson was one of the guys that we targeted early on. We thought just size, width, hand size, athleticism, really good target, and works really hard. Comes from a really athletic background family, and he's a great kid. So all those guys, I mean, I can't say enough about each one of them. But I know Matt Luke's excited to get those guys in and start coaching them.
Kirby, you mentioned about being able to land a lot of the top targets in state. Besides the pandemic, what else was in play there in terms of, was that the major contributing factor, just the inability of other coaches from out of state to come into Georgia to visit them, or something about this group in particular that you think lend itself to coming to Georgia?
I don't know. I would, like I said, I thought the pandemic was the number one factor that helped in-state recruiting. I think, their inability to go on all these trips might have played, maybe that's one guy, I don't know. And, the quarterback being from our state, that probably played a little bit of factor. I don't know. I know that a lot of people have reached out to me and said Georgia's success in the last 4 to 5 years is starting to take its toll. These kids grew up seeing Georgia in the top 5, top 6 in the country most of their high school lives, even middle school lives. So that plays a factor in it. And Georgia's got a great place to go to school academically. So I always think that we should be one of the leaders in Georgia. And there's different years where things happen for strange reasons, but we're very pleased with how we did in state this year.
Okay, let's go to Dean Legge and then Chip Towers.
Kirby, one of the things that Brock brings that's been different, just generally speaking, maybe with the exception of Justin in the last maybe since Quincy, is the capability to really run. Can you please talk about his ability to run and sort of how that separates him from the guys that you looked at in this class as well?
Well, he's a really good athlete. He's tough. He's a competitor. He grew up playing the game. Not afraid to take a hit, deliver a blow. I mean, one of the first stories I heard about him when I got here was how he covered kickoffs, maybe in the 8th or 9th grade, and wasn't afraid to hit people. I think when you look at a quarterback nowadays, that's one of the things you've got to say, and it's the new deal. Like when you look across the NFL, the arm angle, the ability to have mobility, to escape. Look, the game's changed. The athletes up front are explosive, fast pass rushers. they come in attack mode. They play pass first, not run first. So when you look at the success maybe Kyler Murray's had or guys had in the NFL, you right away say the athleticism is the overriding factor. You want to have someone that can do those things, but they've got to have the ability to process all the information, to put you in the right situation to make plays, to change plays, to do a lot of things. And, we think he's a good athlete, and he's shown that over his career. And he's a little dinged up actually right now. He's dealing with some injuries, but you get those things when you run and you get out of the pocket a lot. And that's one of those things you got to be able to protect him, but he's got to be able to make good decisions on when to slide.
Coach, just wondering, do you expect anything else today? And then what about the February period? Is that there now to help you with all this ingress and egress you might have with underclassmen making decisions and those kind of things?
Yeah, as far as we expect anything else today, I don't know what you guys have. I mean, we have what we expect to have, but I don't know what's been posted. I know Claude mentioned to me there was a couple missing right before we started, but we have what we expect to have today, and we're good with where we are. As far as February, yeah, I think wiggle room it's like a catch-22, because if I have a lot of wiggle room, there's nobody to put in the wiggle room. Okay, so like if I have too many available, there's not enough available players to supply the demand that you necessarily have available. So you don't want a lot of that, but we're going to know more about our team in mid-January than we know now. So I want to have the ability to fix, to try to find solutions for holes or depth issues, and we think we're in position to do that.
Let's go to Charles Odom and then Jake Rowe.
Another follow-up on you, noting that this is a closer to home class and that being directed by COVID. You're putting the framework, the groundwork right now on next year's class as well. And so do you expect this to be a trend that continues in the near future?
Yeah, I don't know, Charles. That's a hard one to answer. I want the best football players. I want high character people that care about the team and love UGA. And if that's kid 15 minutes away or 15 hours away, I'm very comfortable with that. I just think that what we've learned through COVID is that character, what's the right word? Self-motivation, self-starters are much more critical to have, because you can't have your hand on these kids 24/7 in the organization. Now you can say, well, that's not a moving fact. I mean, I could have told you that before COVID, but I do think it's a more critical factor than ever before, because it's much easier now in our society to give up, quit, move on, not like it tough. So when things are even, I'm picking the one that likes it tough. I'm picking it doesn't matter where he's from. So if the trend is to say more closer to home, no, the trend is to say, I want guys that are fully committed to the process of doing hard work and developing and going to school and getting their education. That's what I'm excited about.
Kirby, you signed a couple really athletic linebackers this class, Smile Munden and Xavier Sori. And just want to ask you, where do those guys fit for you? What are y'all's plans for them in terms of the roles they'll play and the needs they met?
Yeah, really excited about those two guys, and think their versatility is their greatest factor. Both of them have really dealt with injuries throughout this year, and that's something that you always got to take into consideration. No different than the NFL does with our players. You do your injury research, you check into them, you see where they are, and both those guys were on our radar as juniors, but neither one of them really got to have the senior year they wanted to have because of injuries. But you take that into account, and we know as well as anybody what those injuries are. And Ron and the medical staff feel great about those guys bouncing back. And in a lot of ways, it can be a blessing in disguise. Maybe not for their high school coach, but it can be a blessing in disguise for us, because we're getting kids that maybe aren't even as developed as they're going to be when they get here. And if you're asking me where they're going to start at, I'm not even answering that question right now, because that's not the most important thing. The beauty is that both those guys will be here mid-year, which is a really key element to success in our defense, for guys to be here and get that exposure and be able to go through spring practice.
Okay, let's go to William with the red and black, and then we'll go to either Jed May or Brandon Sudge, whichever has a question. Go ahead, William.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask just, what your day was like today, seeing all the signings come in. I know you weren't, heading into the signing period, you weren't really happy that it was coinciding with game prep. Were you busy this morning still trying to find a replacement team, or are you able to actually kind of enjoy this?
No, I'll be honest. I didn't really do anything with signing day today in terms of that. I spent most of the day with our players, our roster, and meeting with those young men. As we, found out and discovered that we weren't going to be able to get a game, my focus has turned to our guys and our roster and spending time with them. I mean, this day was done. Our coaches did a good job and spoke to the guys and got their paperwork in. But we spent predominantly most of the day on 2022 prospects and our team.
Hey, Kirby, following up on the outside linebackers with Xavier Sorey specifically, following up on the creativity thing. I saw the video about the barber and the barber shop and all that. What was kind of the story about landing him? You guys have been in pursuit of him for a while. What were some things that stood out about him?
He's a kid that we recruited for a long time. A lot of people in the country did. He's extremely athletic, talented, but raw. He's a developmental player, meaning we think he's got size. We think he's got speed. He's got athleticism. He played at a really, really small school in which I'm very familiar with and grew up near down there. And I got to watch him play a basketball game. One of the few guys I got to watch play basketball, and just thought he was a really good athlete on the basketball court. Duncan, very talented, and he's really a good kid. And he made a decision to go to IMG for a senior year, which I think put him in a position to be more successful in college because he got exposed to other players like him where he had not seen that in his hometown. And that kind of gave him an awakening of, whoa, there's a lot of people out here like me. These guys are pretty good. And he's going to grow and get better. He's going to have to be patient and really understand the defense and grow as a player. But I think he's willing to do that. He committed to the relationships he has here, in which he's got relationships with a lot of coaches who are going to really push him to excel. And it's just not going to happen overnight. But he's a guy that we just really worked on the entire time, and our staff, they did a great job. Coach Schumann, Coach Cochran, Coach Lanning really worked hard with Xavier.
And then another quick question, if I can. So, in terms of the guys you signed, are there any guys who y'all weren't able to see face to face, or were y'all recruiting them so far in advance where the whole COVID thing didn't have an impact in terms of getting them on campus?
I assume you mean your face to face is not counting Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that answering that question is probably tough because I can't think back to all of them. I would think that every one of these kids had been to a game or been to a camp or been here at some point in time. I know somebody like A.D. Mitchell, he was here as like a sophomore in camp. So it was really, really young, and we had experienced camp with him. But at that time, he was young, and we liked him, but we didn't get to see him after that for a while. But looking down the list, I would say, yeah, we'd seen every one of these guys face to face at some point.
Okay, let's go to Jeff Schultz and then Jay Black.
Hey, Kirby, this is a big picture question, but it does tie into recruiting somewhat. In the first 3 years, or 4 years, but you really established yourself recruiting wise, and you won a few division titles, and everything was in place. And this year, Florida won the East. And obviously, some people now are going to ask the question, boy, does this signal a balance of power again in the East? Again, you can tie this into recruiting if you want, but I'm just wondering your perspective on that, the East Division, and how much recruiting plays into that, or do you have any sort of thoughts on that? Any shift of balance and power or not?
Yeah, I think everybody will have their opinion on it. I think it has to do with not playing well in a game. I don't think it has to do with balance of power. But I will say that a lot of football boils down to the line of scrimmages, and I still think we have really good line of scrimmages. Obviously, that game, we didn't play well enough, and they outcompeted us and outplayed us. But I'm very comfortable with where we are in terms of our team and program. I think so much of a game a lot of time falls, and I hate to say it, a lot of it falls in the quarterback position because at the quarterback position. They make a decision every play. They've got a really good quarterback. They got a guy that's played for a long time, and we caught him on a younger year the year before that. Caught Felipe on one of his younger years before that. And we've had Jake Fromm prior to that, so we had a lot of experience at that position. But I'm not pointing blame at anything. I'm just comfortable with where we are. I think the SEC East will always be competitive. And it's one of those things that we know we got to win that to get to the big show.
Coach, what's changed about the relationship you've had to build?
I'm sorry, relationship with who?
Coach, what's changed about the relationships you've built with this incoming class on the last year, recruiting them over Zoom as opposed to the years past?
I really don't think much changed because we did Zoom with them, but I knew them before Zoom. So like I had a relationship with most of these guys. I'd seen them in person. I'd seen them in camp. I'd seen them play basketball. I mean, whatever the context was, I'd known them. So the Zoom part was just what we were forced to do. Then after we did some Zooms, it became FaceTime and phone calls, which is what it is every year. So that part didn't change. I think the biggest dynamic is I didn't get to go in their homes, and they didn't get to come to games. And that's the part where you really feel like you get to know them. You spend 3-4 hours with a guy at a game. I don't, but the recruiting staff does. And then you go in a home and sister, brother, grandma, aunt, uncle, who really makes this guy tick, and them. That's the hardest part to me. And there's not as much attachment, which if you think about it and you start looking at the numbers long term, and you guys are a lot smarter than me statistically, you start looking at it and saying 3 years from now, 2 years from now, 1 year from now, are we going to be dealing with more transfer because there's not that relationship. There's not grandmom or granddad at home that's going to say, hey, you need to stick it out. You need to stay there and continue to work, because they may not have that same relationship because nobody ever came in the home.
Okay, we got time for 3 more questions. We're going to go to Roddy and then Connor Riley and David Pascal.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned that 4 was the absolute limit or minimum when it comes to offensive line. You have some spots left. Can you kind of give us a breakdown of at which spots you were looking to add players come February? And then where will you focus on the class of 2022? In which positions?
Everybody asked that, Roddy, on 2022. You know what we're looking for? We're looking for a complete class. And I know it's right, but if y'all sat here and told you, well, 2022, we're losing X, man, I don't even know what I'm losing tomorrow. I don't even know I don't even know what I'm losing in January. So for you to ask me that for 2022, I want good football players. I want good people with high character, and I want a balanced class. What is a balanced class? Quota at every position. You know what I mean? Like everyone. And I say 4 is the minimum. I do think 4 is kind of the minimum you take there. If anything, in the second half, I'm looking for someone that can change the game for us, someone that can really be a dynamic playmaker would be something we're looking for in February. I'm not necessarily looking for another offensive lineman. That's not the case. I'm looking for best available player. We'd love to get another DB. We'd love to get another defensive lineman, because I always want to get, 2 pillars. And I don't know that we got 2 pillars in there. When I'm talking about pillars, I'm talking about a guy that can hold the point and not give up the run and make it hard to run the ball against you. Those are always harder to find as defensive linemen, and that's something we'd love to have. Now, you're not going to find those out there in January because they're all gone. But and I know there's a different market available out there in January and February when it comes to people deciding to leave and transfer, in which, it goes both ways. It could happen to us, and we could also receive the benefit of that.
Hey, Kirby, Brandon mentioned earlier the video you put out last Thursday of you looking for a barber, I guess. 1, would you feel comfortable letting Xavier Sorey cut your own hair? And 2, how did that video sort of come together and come about?
Well, to be honest, that video was us trying to have a way to highlight our features of our new facility. And that's what the purpose is of that. We've got a lot of awesome features coming out in that facility that we're certainly proud of. And that's one of our selling points, is that our $80 million facility is right outside my window every day. So every time I talk to people, we're able to see it, and it's going to be unbelievable. In terms of him cutting my hair, I could care less about my hair, so he can have at it.
Kirby, as a follow-up to what you were talking about last week about seniors not counting toward the 85 next year, but right now kind of eating up some mid-year spots. When you talk about 15 or 16 mid-years, I assume in talking with players, do you kind of have a good gauge of what seniors are going to do? Have you talked to some juniors, or is there still going to be a roster management challenge in the weeks ahead to get to that 16?
Yeah, it's going to be tight for us. I mean, we've got a certain number of X that we know and feel good about, and then we've got the unknown. But the unknown will probably get us where we need to in terms of numbers. But I mean, I can't get into particulars on that. And you give kids their opportunity to make their decisions. But yes, it's definitely taxing in terms of numbers in and numbers out. It's different. I mean, I've never had it, so it's very different for us. But with 16, it makes it even more trying.
Thanks.
Thanks, Coach Smart. Thanks, everyone, for calling in.
Appreciate it, guys.
All the best, everyone, to happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon.